All my life, diving has been an escape. As a boy, I found solace beneath the surface, where the chaos of the world above faded away. The tranquility, the feeling of weightlessness, it was another universe entirely. It wasn't long before my passion became a profession. Eventually, I even led a commercial dive team. I felt I was born to lead others, taking them with me into the depths of the sea, where I felt most at ease. The ocean had become a part of my life, and I had grown to adore it. For years, I immersed myself in the maritime world, finding more comfort in its ebbs and flows than on land. But over the years, that began to change. I started to feel the ocean was a place I didn't belong. The song was one of those things that pushed that change. The first time I heard it, it was barely a whisper, a hint of a melody woven into the water's flow. I attributed it to the pressure of the depths playing tricks on my mind. Or perhaps an auditory hallucination caused by nitrogen narcosis. I convinced myself it was a mere trick of the deep. However, it became harder to dismiss when the same ethereal woman's voice, so eerily sweet, resonated in my head several other times I descended beneath the surface. The call was an intoxicating lure, pulling at the strings of my curiosity, tempting me to swim deeper, further into the unknown. The haunting beauty of the voice seemed to vibrate within me, like a seductive whisper. Yet, each time the melodic call echoed through my mind, I noticed shadows circling beneath me, swirling figures shifting in and out of view. It was as if they were drawn to the song, or perhaps the song was an emission of these lurking entities. The silhouettes always moved with a disturbing grace, their forms never quite in focus. A chill of dread crept up my spine every time I saw them, the darkness itself seeming alive and predatory. It felt like something was lurking at the edge of my vision, an unspoken warning of danger waiting to drag me down. Throughout the years, I had come to realize that these weren't just products of my imagination. I had encountered too many similar situations, and their impact on me was always so intense. One day, I brought it up to the crew. I knew a few would think it was a joke, or that I was losing it, but this was something that was real and that needed to be discussed. One immediately dismissed it as a case of the rapture of the deep, the disorientation and euphoria some divers experience due to the high-pressure environment. Others simply laughed it off, making jokes about mermaids and sea sirens. But as I scanned their faces, several didn't laugh. Their eyes held the same haunted look I felt inside me. Even as I saw the humor in their jests and entertained the rational explanations, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that accompanied my recollection of those circling forms. The song, the shadows, they weren't natural. They weren't just figments of my imagination, or physiological responses to the pressures of the deep. They were something else. The more I heard them, the more persistent the calls became, and the more numerous the shadows. My once peaceful refuge transformed into a watery nightmare. The enchanting melody of the sea became a haunting serenade the mesmerizing beauty of the ocean depths, now a dreadful abyss. I felt a pull, an irresistible force beckoning me to venture further, to lose myself in the inky blackness. But it wasn't just my story. I wasn't the only one lured by the siren's call. As the haunting melody echoed in my ears, I knew I had to share our tales from the deep, to shed light on the strange horrors that my dive team had encountered. Maybe then we could find answers. Maybe then the song would stop. My team, a motley crew of experienced divers, all had different experiences beneath the surface. I would call them grizzled seafarers, but that term belongs to a bygone era. Instead, they were pioneers, men and women with a passion for uncovering the mysteries of the deep. They each had their tales to tell, their encounters with the eerie songstress of the sea, and the shadowy figures that seemed to be her attendants. Mike was among the first to share his story. He was a seasoned diver with decades of experience. A gruff man with a bristly beard and eyes that always seemed to be smiling. Mike was one of those divers who seemed to be born in the water, his movements elegant, his demeanor as calm as glass. But even Mike, as seasoned and unshakable as he wasn't immune to the strange occurrences. His account came after a dive in the local kelp forest, a place we often did new hire training and orientation. On this day, though, after ordering everyone out of the water, Mike surfaced with an ashen complexion, a stark contrast to his usual rosy post-dive glow. His speech wavered as he described his experience. He had been swimming through the forest, the green tendrils of kelp swaying gently in the currents when he saw her. She was an ethereal figure floating among the kelp, her form shifting like the shadows I had often seen. She was singing the song, her voice flowing through the water like an otherworldly current, touching and penetrating everything. Mike described how he had become entranced, his attention pulled towards her like a moth to a flame. Then, as swiftly as she had appeared, she vanished into the gloom, leaving nothing behind but a chilling sense of dread. The water had felt colder and darker. The spell was broken, but the song still echoed in his mind. The crew had fallen silent as Mike recounted his story. His usually jovial eyes were filled with fear. I had never seen Mike shaken like this, never thought the sea could scare a man like him. It was the first time the siren's song and the shadowy figures felt like more than just my private hallucinations. From then on, Mike wasn't the same. His smiles less frequent, his laughter muted. The sea had changed for him too. Its once inviting depths, now a source of palpable fear. His experience was a stark reminder of our shared encounters with the unknown, a validation of the haunting song and shadowy figures that seemed to lurk beneath the surface. His tale became a chilling precedent for more stories to emerge from the crew. It appeared that the haunting melody of the siren and her dark entourage were not just confined to my experiences or to the crevices of my mind. This strange phenomenon was real. It was happening to my team, and it was far more widespread than any of us could have initially comprehended. Eventually, more of my crew began to share their unnerving experiences. Jane, was the next to open up. A woman who had proved herself to be every bit as skilled and tenacious as her male counterparts. Jane was never one to believe in myths and legends. She had always been a scientist, interested in studying the unknown depths of the ocean, considering them an uncharted ecosystem. Her life before joining my group revolved around marine biology. She'd always laugh at fishermen's superstitions or stories about eerie creatures and phantom vessels. But what Jane encountered during one dive defied all logic and explanation by science. Her story came after a particularly deep dive to fortify the leg of an oil rig. The shelf it had been built on had an awkward drop-off, causing one of the legs to be about 3 times longer than the others. Why they'd gone ahead and built it like that, I couldn't imagine. Something about permits and protection lines. All of it over my head, but for some reason the long leg was regularly cracking. Jane, an avid explorer, eagerly volunteered to dive into the depths, unconcerned by our recent odd experiences. As she descended further, we watched on her helmet cam as the rays of light from above began to fade until nothing but darkness surrounded her. She was now in a world cut off from ours above the waves. Then, she said, the entities arrived. They didn't swim or float, but seemed to materialize from the darkness, as if they were born from it. These shadowy figures swarmed around her, their forms vague and shifting, like smoke caught in a water current. The light from her dive torch cut through the water, revealing dozens of these shadowy entities circling her, their forms waving in and out of the gloom. From our screen, we could only see her frantically spinning back and forth, muttering that they were everywhere. Just like Mike and myself, she heard the whispers, the eerie song that seemed to resonate from the depths. Each note, each melody, was like an ethereal whisper coaxing her further into the abyss. It was the same song I had heard, the one that had turned my love for the sea into a quiet apprehension. When she returned to the surface, she was visibly shaken, her skin as pallid as the underbelly of a fish. The usually self-assured Jane was on the verge of tears, her hands trembling as she recounted her experience. It was the first time I had seen her lose her composure, the first time I saw fear in her eyes. The rest of the crew listened to Jane's tale in silence, each person grappling with the reality that our encounters were not isolated incidents. They were repeated experiences, hauntingly similar and fearfully personal, shared by those who dared to delve into the deep. Jane's encounter confirmed for the crew what I'd already known. We weren't just dealing with an isolated, one-off incident. It wasn't just me or Mike. Something was down there in the depths of the ocean. Something was beckoning us to venture further into the deep. Our diving missions started to carry a sense of foreboding. Every descent was met with a collective breath-holding, each emergence celebrated with a sigh of relief. The joy and excitement of exploring the underwater world were replaced with a dread-filled anticipation of the siren's song and the menacing ballet of the shadowy entities. But nothing, not even the haunting experiences we had, could prepare us for the distress call we were about to receive. The day had been peaceful, with sunshine glistening on the waters of the sea. We had spent it on the deck, performing basic maintenance tasks and swapping stories. It was a momentary break in our undersea journeys, a chance for me to forget about the eerie song and shadowy figures. Then, out of the blue, a message blared over our radio, distorted by static.
"Mayday, mayday."
A panicked voice echoed through the speaker.
"One of our divers is missing. We need immediate assistance."
A shiver ran through me. I knew the voice on the line. It belonged to Captain Harris from a neighboring dive team. A seasoned veteran who'd navigated the sea for decades. The distress in his voice was obvious, and I knew we had to respond. As the closest vessel, we quickly geared up and set course to their coordinates. The light-hearted camaraderie we'd enjoyed earlier was replaced by a tense silence. The only sound was the low rumble of the engine and the chop of the water as we sped through the waves. Upon reaching their location, we learned that the missing diver had reported hearing a woman's voice underwater just before he disappeared. The haunting detail sent a cold chill down my spine. I recognized it all too well. The song, the siren's call. The melodic whisper that seemed to resonate within my mind, beckoning me to the depths. The sun was beginning to set while we prepared to descend into the darkening waters. I gingerly slid my arms into the sleeves of my protective suit and zipped up the front. The material felt heavy and stiff, and ice ran through my veins as I contemplated the task ahead. The dimming light, the desperate situation, and the familiar whisper of the song in the back of my mind were an ominous mix. One by one, we slipped beneath the waves, our dive lights piercing the gathering gloom. We descended into the depth, the familiar melody filling my head, the dark shadows playing in my periphery. The water around us became a chilling stage for their shadowy dance, their forms flickering at the edge of our lights. The search was both frantic and painstaking. Every shadow, every floating piece of kelp could be the missing diver. But as minutes churned into hours, hope began to fade. The song was intensifying, the shadows swirling around us in a tightening circle. We were like a school of fish caught in their sinister net. Suddenly, the missing diver's light appeared in the distance. It flickered weakly, a single beacon of life in the enveloping darkness. But as we approached, the dread in my heart deepened. The light was lying on the ocean floor, the diver nowhere in sight. The implications were heavy, a dark cloud hanging over our heads as we surfaced. We had been too late. The siren's call had claimed our brother. In the watery depths, we'd faced the sinister manifestations of the entities, battled against the hypnotic allure of the song, but we had failed to save our fellow diver. The sea had shown us a sliver of truth, proving that our fears were not unfounded, that the horrors of the deep were not in the imaginations of those who braved her dark depths. As we returned to our vessel, the haunting melody still ringing in our ears, I couldn't help but feel a profound sadness. The sea, my one-time haven, had become a harbinger of strange horrors. Its depths a chilling unknown. I was left to ponder our encounter and the fate of the missing diver as we sailed back under a moonless sky, the siren's call echoing into the silence of the night. In the aftermath of that fateful rescue mission, my crew and I were left grappling with the unsettling realities we'd faced. The deep had claimed one of our own, ensnared by the siren's call that still echoed in our minds. It was a haunting reminder of the mysterious and terrifying dangers in the unexplored depths of the ocean. These were not mere sailors' tales or the fabrications of overactive imaginations. They were real, tangible, and had exacted a terrible price. Our collective experiences painted a disturbing picture. The sea, a place of awe-inspiring beauty and adventure, was also a place of unexplainable horrors. However, the siren's call was not the only strange occurrence that plagued us. Over the years, my dive team and I have encountered numerous other incidents that defy logic and challenge our understanding of the deep. Shadows that take on life, lights that lead nowhere, currents that seem to have a mind of their own, and many other unexplainable experiences. Each new encounter adds a layer to the enigma that the sea represents. But those of us born with a deep connection to the sea do not give up our love for her. If anything, these strange experiences have only ignited a stronger desire in us to understand the secrets that the ocean holds. The allure of the unknown, even as it terrifies us, draws us back to the sea time and again. Perhaps it's the thrill of the unexplored, the lure of the mysterious, or the quest for answers that pushes us to venture into the watery abyss. In the end, we have come to accept that the ocean will always be a place of wonder and fear, a place of beauty and dread. It is a siren in its own right, beckoning us to plunge into its depths, even as it resounds with the strange and haunting song that fills our nightmares. But for now, we must take a break. There are so many tales to tell and experiences to share about the depths of the ocean. Our journey beneath its surface is far from finished. In due course, I will share more tales from the deep, more insights into the strange horrors that we've faced. Until then, the song lingers, a chilling reminder of our experiences, a solemn reverberation through the seemingly endless depths of the ocean.